Welcome back, everybody. I am so gutted that that's probably the last time I'm going to have to hear that song because I've been dancing along to it in the background where no one can see the whole day. But alas, here we are, the last session of the day. But we're going to end on a really good high here because we have really, really great session here. Really looking into the deeps of a case study on creating new online revenue streams held by Hazel and Jade, who are going to come on in a second. Before I bring them on, just wanted to bring up afterwards, if you could drop us some feedback on the session and for the day, be much appreciated. And also make sure to stick around for some networking in the networking section too. But without further ado, I will pass on to kick us all off. Jade and Faisal.
Hello and welcome to this session. Thanks, Nick, for that introduction. It's going to be a case study on creating new online revenue streams. I'm Jade Stiano. I'm Digital Skills Program Manager at Media Trust, and I'm delighted to be your host for this session. We're going to be looking at understanding proactive steps you can take to create engaging content for revenue streams. The speaker for this session is Faz Ahmed, Global Operations Director at Humanity First. Faz has over 35 years of experience and a passion for delivering healthcare transformation through outcome-based solutions and effective partnerships across the health and life sciences sectors. And if you have any question for Faz throughout this presentation, if you post it in the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen, we'll try and get to as many as we can at the end of the session. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Faz.
Hi, thank you. Right, I think I'll do a few presentation slides and then we can get into the Q&A. So let me just find my slides. Is that working? The slides working?
Yes, they are. They're working perfectly. Everyone can see.
Excellent, great. So as Jade said, I'm currently serving as the Operations Director for Global NGO Humanity First. I used to be the Marketing Director many years ago, and through that process, in the wake of my kids, I've had to learn about social media and all the rest of it. I'm just going to give you some ideas and some of our experiences over the last decade or so trying to engage with the new online world. So first of all, it's all about donor engagement, whether it's online or face-to-face, it's all about donor engagement. And to get donors really engaged, you have to have content, stories, and so on. So, in the last year, we've been very active on the Polish border with Ukraine, and everyone knows what's been going on in Ukraine. We've been working in Africa on trying to extend access to education to rural communities. We've been responding to floods and other disasters. We've been dealing with sustainable projects and trying to combat the effects of the environment at the moment. So these are all causes and stories that people are interested in and are engaging in. Some of them are global issues. To get that message out there, if you have personal stories or if you can talk, raise the voice of local people that you're helping and, explain their pain and what impact we're going to have through the projects we're doing, that's the hook. That's the starting point for donor engagement. Then, what we found is that building a team of ambassadors has been really important. As I said, I look after operations at Humanity First in 62 countries, so I can't be everywhere. And I can't possibly know what individual communities or sub-communities in different parts of a country are or are not interested in. So we've built a network of ambassadors around the world. But being an ambassador, it's not like, you imagine if you're walking through Waterloo Station and you've got guys with a clipboard for a couple of days trying to get you to donate. It's more than that. These people tend to become longer term ambassadors for the charity. But in doing so, they want to know what is going on. They want to feel involved. They want to have an impact. They want to be able to come up with ideas and know that you will at least consider those ideas. They want to get personally involved in events. Once they get to the point where they're excited about what you're doing, then they will generate you an audience. And especially for online, it's largely a younger audience. I mean, To qualify that, my mum is approaching 80 now. I got her a mobile phone a few years ago. When she goes out, she turns it off to preserve the battery. So you're talking about different audiences who respond in different ways to different channels. With online, it tends to be more of a younger audience. And we're finding that our network of young ambassadors are the ones who are even nuancing what messages we need to use to reach that audience. And equally, when they come back with feedback, it's important to take that on board, because what they learn, what they hear on the coalface is priceless for us. As I said, we're all volunteers and our ambassadors are volunteers. So it's important for us that we take our ambassadors seriously and that we give them a voice as well. So then let's look at engagement. You have to understand your audience, because you can spend a lot of time building fancy content for the website, for social media, but if you don't know what is exciting your audience, the young audience is quite savvy, but also they have a very short attention span, and they will definitely be looking for, they will be searching, whether it's through hashtags or whatever else, they'll be searching all of the channels for trends that they're interested in. It might be to do with gender, it might be to do with sustainability, it might be to do with climate change or conflict or whatever it is. They will be searching for content. So you have to get your messaging right and exciting and interesting to grab them. And I suppose the other thing that we've learned is that when we do events, now hopefully we're going to have a Q&A here and we're going to have a level of engagement. The mistake people made in the early days was they assumed it was transmission, like I'm having to do right now. And you imagine you're presenting for 30 minutes and assuming everyone's staying on and interested. They're not. They're interested for the first 5 minutes, then a lot of them will drop off. So you have to keep that balance between transmission and engagement, and it's engagement which is the most important bit. And even when you're doing events, there are different ways of doing engagement. I'll give you some examples now. So when we look at channels, the bit at the bottom is quite key, to sync or not to sync. I've had people in my team who say, just produce your content on Twitter and we will make sure it simultaneously goes out to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, you name it. There's technology out there that will repurpose it and put it on every platform. For me, that's wrong. Because the audiences that are attacking different channels have different needs and different requirements and different expectations of the story that you're putting out. So if you take a story on your website, hopefully you've got dynamic content, not just a site that you loaded a year ago and hasn't changed for a year. If you've got a news feed and people go on and the last news update you did was from February, then they will take from that there's not a lot going on. Now, that's part of my challenge as well. As I mentioned, Humanity First is registered in 62 countries. And I sit in the headquarters now, and even the UK is a separate team. And I have to keep an eye on all of our content to make sure that they're updating it, keeping it interesting, keeping it current, keeping the content real. So I have to validate what they're saying. Sometimes they're putting out mobile apps to reach their audience. But the nature of the content has to be fit for purpose. So on Facebook, people are expecting, a gallery of images, a slightly more detailed story. They're interested in the characters, who we're actually dealing with, what impact is having them. Partners also will use Facebook. So if they're helping us, they would expect their name to come up in lights. This is, a bakery in Gothenburg that is helping our food back in Gothenburg, that kind of thing. On Twitter, it tends to be short sound bites with hashtags. Images and videos definitely help. So very rarely do Twitter updates without images and videos, but it's a short story and the right hashtags and so on to make sure that if you can, you're hitting trending stories and so on. With Instagram, it tends to be images and videos with a short description of what it is. YouTube is videos. LinkedIn is hitting a different audience. So with LinkedIn, we tend to be hitting corporate social responsibility and organizations that are grantors or funders interested in CSR, or partners. So you can see that in different channels, there's different requirements and expectations, and you have to adjust and repurpose your story to meet all of those different channels, rather than doing one amorphous blob and just allowing software to push the same thing out on every channel. For me, that's cheating. Events, how are we doing for time? So in terms of events, now in the early days, we started to do things like telethons. And when I say a telethon, think of something like Children in Need or Red Nose Day or something like that, where you've got a studio set up running for 8 hours. You've got a thermometer saying, oh, we've raised 1.2 million, that kind of thing. And to start with, everyone on our team, the doctors, wanted to have half an hour they could bore the hell out of the audience with technical language on what they're doing on a medical camp. And our engineers wanted to bore you stupid about how to build a water borehole, but people weren't really interested in that. They wanted to get to the nub of the story. You know, what are you doing? What impact is it having? And how can I get involved? And so we started to have, to encourage our contributors to focus on their experiences and the story. Then we started to have a lot more dial-in, people engaging with someone who's just come back from Sierra Leone and saying, what was it like through the Ebola outbreak? And then we started to have drop-in events. So, for example, we were doing painting of classrooms in schools in Africa and the Middle East and South Asia and Central America. We ran a competition in London for kids to come up with a mural that we would then paint on the back of a classroom. And we've done other things. You know, on the top you can see in Port Louis in Mauritius, they were doing a blood donation session for our most recent telethon, and encouraging people to come in, talk to the guys about the projects they're doing, the new school they're building in Madagascar, and donate or even volunteer and join and become part of the team. So these types of hybrid events we found really useful, not just having, say, a studio-based setup, but having a hybrid event where in different hubs around the world for us, people can drop in and actually get personally involved. And when they get involved, they bring their friends and family with them. So that's how you build momentum with these events. You know, we've done other things where we've done a virtual, those of you who've been through COVID, which is all of us, we did a virtual event as a pizza night. And up and down the country, people were donating and then all having the same pizza meal while we were doing a family quiz. So again, it's a way of engaging people, and the fact that they were actually eating as part of the event and taking part in the quiz, it wasn't transmission, this was them actually getting involved. So then there's a call to action. Once you've got your donors hooked and you want to, get to revenue, you've got the story, you've got your events, you've got people excited, you hope, then, when you get them to donate, they want to know how much, how quickly, for what, and what are you going to deliver with it. So let me give you an example on that. We're building a hospital in Ivory Coast. We're looking to go live in the next 18 months. We need X million to finish the project. And anyone who raises more than £1,000, their name will go up on the donor board in the hospital, and it's going to provide maternity services to over 10,000 women who previously would not be able to afford that level of care in Ivory Coast, in the Yopougon area. So that's an example of a project, but there are many, many others. And some people will contribute £1 and want to know, what can you do with that? £10, £100. There might be a corporate who comes in and says, I want a co-brand and I can give you 10,000. So you have to have stories and opportunities that match the wide spectrum of people that are listening in and getting interested. And finally, on donations then, it is important to have a clear donation benefits message. So give us £50 and we will do a cataract operation for a patient in Africa. You have to make the navigation easy. So on the right you can see navigation we were using recently on one of our telethons, and you get to that from the first click on the website, and then you can choose what you want to donate towards. Something else we've learned over the years is, GDPR came along and has been, frankly, a nightmare. I think the people they wanted to stop with GDPR still found other ways through. The people they've actually stopped are simple charities trying to engage with their donors. So when you're trying to do donations, there was a temptation, especially when GDPR first kicked in, that get them to register, harvest as much information as you can so that they become repeat donors and we can start bombarding them with information and messages. The trouble is, we found many, many guests, and the feedback we had was, I wanted to donate, but you wanted 20 bits of information. I just lost the will. I would have given you 100 quid. So we have tried to make sure that people can donate as a guest. And if they want to, or they're already registered, that's great. If they want to register, that's their choice. But if they just want to quickly get on and donate in 1 minute, enter their name, the amount, and their card details, and off they go, then they can do that. We shouldn't stop people from doing ad hoc donations, because that's actually the lifeblood of the online revenue stream. If you try and veer it towards just registered long-term donors, then you're probably locking yourself out of 30-40% of your potential revenue. It's very important to give them feedback and acknowledgement. So send an email saying, thank you for your donation of £10, yada, yada, yada. And if they have ticked the box to say they're interested in feedback, you can send them newsletters or other information to keep them engaged with what you're doing. So in conclusion, online is reaching new and younger audiences. But potential to increase your revenue is huge, because now you can be reaching a global audience online, not just the people who would fit into your meeting, your venue in London. If you've hired a hall for 100 people, that's all you're going to get. With online, you can reach as many people as you have the creativity to hit. But donors are savvy, and I suppose you could say time poor, impatient, however you want to describe it. It's like an elevator pitch. You've got 15-20 seconds to grab them, and they'll either stay with you or they'll be looking for the next thing. So you have to make it easy for our donors. You have to make it interesting. You have to make it exciting. And as I said, if you're doing online events, we've found that make it virtual, but make it hybrid. So let's say you're doing an event and you've got points of presence in London, Southampton, Oxford, Manchester. Have some drop-in events, get them to come in, get them to engage, and you will get people, staying with you longer term. Right, I think that's it for the presentation. I'm quite happy to have a discussion now. Any questions that come in?
Oh, that was great, Faz. Thank you so much. Really interesting to see the different ways that you're engaging your audience. And we do have a really good question actually from Julia Orchard. She is asking, have you had any success raising funds through TikTok? And if yes, how did you go about it?
No, I haven't. My 17-year-old is into TikTok, but watching what he does on TikTok, I can't imagine I can do that. There's only so many channels that any charity can work with. And we're volunteer based, so all of us, even on the board, we're all volunteers. If we had a dedicated team and you felt that today's most fashionable is TikTok, then yeah, definitely. But this is part of the challenge. Each time you think you've nailed it, another app comes out, and you're thinking, what is that? And on this one, you have to sing and dance. And, so you have to know the audience who's on TikTok. What are they after? What is their engagement span? And how can you actually turn that into revenue? That's part of the challenge.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And it goes back to your point about repurposing for different platforms as well, and making sure when you're using social media platforms, just making sure that the content that you're putting out there is relevant.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question. Sarah Cobbleton's asked, if we want to collect gift aids on donations, we need that detailed information. Going back to GDPR, problem being it ends up costing more money for chasing donors for details later on to get them on the gift aid register. What strategies have you used to maximize that gift aid income in this GDPR guest space?
So we've used things like Just Giving in the early days, where they were capturing all of the information and recovering the gift aid for you in return for a percentage. Now that many of these organizations are becoming more popular, they're asking for more of a cut. I think that if your strategy is just around gift aid, it could be flawed, because by the time you get that information, you might turn off many of your donors. So, as I said earlier, have the flexibility to have guests who just quickly go on, enter high level of information, make a donation, but aren't going to give you gift aid, aren't going to want to receive your newsletters. Those that want to engage longer term, then register with you. And in that registration process, you can get their GDPR acceptance that they want to receive information and that they pay tax and that you can recover gift aid and all the rest of it. But that's only going to be for a chunk of your population. It's not going to be everyone. And you can't even assume that everyone that is donating wants to do gift aid. We've had people who've come on and said, I actually don't want you talking to the tax man about me. I'm just going to give you a small donation. So I think we have to respect the wishes of our donors.
Excellent, thank you. And Winter Johnson has asked, what is your advice for staying current with social media trends, with the channels changing so quickly? And I guess that goes for the different platforms, different types. You mentioned telethons earlier, and then that's obviously moved on to pizza nights. What would be your advice for staying current?
My advice is get some younger people into your team, because as much as I might think I know, when I say to people, we've done the latest updates on Twitter. Oh, Twitter's for old people. I've done it on Facebook. Facebook's dead. Okay, so where do you look? And the answer is changing almost on a monthly basis. So I think you need to have a younger team as part of your organization to advise you. Because wherever they're looking, that's where we need to be looking. I've got the same today. I was doing recruitment for work, and some of it's through Indeed, some of it's through The Guardian, some of it's through LinkedIn, some of it's through other channels. But you can't assume that one channel is for everyone. So ask your team, and you get the right answer.
Some great advice. Yeah, lean on people in your team. It's brilliant. Excellent, Faz. Well, that's all the questions that we've got on the platform. Thank you so much for your talk this afternoon. It's been really interesting. And thank you to everyone for attending. I'm going to hand back over to Nick now just to close up the session.
Thank you so much to you both. And I've just put a comment in the chat about if you want some help with social media. We have a rather marvelous video all about social media and the person who acts in it is just brilliant, really brilliant. Looks a lot like me, but yeah. Thank you so much to everyone who's come today. It's been an absolutely marvelous day. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope you have too. Please take the time to drop us some feedback on your sessions. Tell us what the things which were favorites, what were improvements or anything that can be made. As I mentioned earlier, if you want to stick around network, there is a tab for that, and you can join a table and have a virtual conversation with everyone. Kiara's just dropped a link to the feedback form if anyone needed help getting there. But once again, thank you so much for attending. We really hope you've had a wonderful day. Also, a quick thank you so much to the events team. They put all this together, and I think they've done a really fabulous job. So I wanted to give them a quick shout out as well. So thank you, everybody. Have a lovely day.